If you've been watching Agatha All Along on Disney Plus, the first two episodes are boring, uneventful, and definitely not the
Gayest?
Marvel show ever created. Contrary to what Variety wants you to believe about Agatha All Along, all of the actors, when asked on the red carpet, pretty much danced around the subject, except for one. Danced around the subject of this is
The gayest?
Marvel show ever created. Now, I'm going to be perfectly clear. This show is super gay. And it's probably only going to get gayer, but it's not that gay in the beginning. We start out really with Agatha, who is a detective in the town she was left behind in from the WandaVision show. And this is played really kind of straight, but it's overacted. So they don't know whether they want it to be a comedy or a serious piece like X-Files or Twin Peaks.
Eat my ass, Chief.
But it really comes across as neither, and at the same time trying to do more than it should. But why, wise pop blender, do you ask, that this show doesn't live up to the hype? You mean the hype that hasn't hardly been promoted by Disney? Because Disney has been working on this show for years. Most of it was primarily shot just a few years ago, post-COVID. And it's such a big steaming pile of crap. They don't want anything to do with it. As a matter of fact, I can't imagine anybody sticking with this show after the first 4 episodes or so, 2 of which I've only seen. The usual suspects, the alphabet community, people who will use race as a shield or bigotry as a shield to protect this show from criticism, are going to be the people who stick with it. Your usual mainstream journalists and the same old people who will write articles and tell us that you, me, anybody that doesn't like this show, we are bigots and istophobes and all that. That's the main headlines you're going to get out of this show as it moves along episode to episode. It's obvious Agatha doesn't really put the pieces together to where she is. Now, it kind of seems like she's pushing away her former life or remembering where she came from or who she was. But as this detective story plays out, we get little clues. She doesn't put the clues together, but then Aubrey Plaza's character comes in, and she's supposedly from the FBI to help with this case as Agatha goes back to the office. And it's pretty obvious also that Aubrey Plaza is trying to remind her who she is, but Agatha's not taking the bait. As this episode plays out, more and more pieces come together. Aubrey Plaza's witch character also helps to put those pieces together. And at the end of the episode, Agatha realizes who she is. And through a intense display of taking off different bodies from the different WandaVision episodes that Agatha was in and the different characters that she played throughout that show, we get a very sensual removal of each of those characters until she finally reveals her true self at the end of the episode, standing over a dead body, which is supposed to represent Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch from WandaVision. Throughout the episode, the sexual tension is played up by our two leads. Multiple scenes, suggestive language, obviously longing looks at each other. Regardless of whether or not these two people remember or don't remember each other, it's apparent Disney is going to play up this sexual tension between our characters, maybe multiple characters. At this point, it's easy to see why the Variety guy would dub this the
Gayest?
Marvel show ever created. It wouldn't be Disney without gay witches.
Power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
God! No! God, please, no! 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 No!
But enough of that shit show. We've got another one to talk about. As much gayness as there is to go around for the ladies, let's not leave out the fellas, because we also get introduced to our effeminate male character known as teen. Disney, you better stop with this shit. So our gay teen ends up breaking into Agatha's house, and then he gets caught, and pretty much for the rest of the next episode in particular becomes just a passenger in Agatha's journey. I also want to mention that the neighbors, when Agatha comes out of her trance or whatever and realizes who she is and where she's at, are the same people from the WandaVision show, except this is 3 years later. So, 3 years later, after they were put under a spell, trapped in their own bodies by Wanda Maximoff, couldn't move, couldn't go to the bathroom, were in agony. And then they were released at the end of that show, now have decided for 3 years to stick around and hang out in the same town while Agatha puts them through all kinds of crap, pretending to be a detective or whatever her mindset is, and they just play along with it to placate her. And it makes no sense. That's why I said there's no rules really put in place for this show. And that in particular, with the people who still live in this town, there's no reason they would still live in this town. After what happened to them in WandaVision, they would up and leave, go seek psychiatric help, something. But they would not sit there for 3 years hanging out with Agatha, who is a regular person, who is a schizophrenic psychopath, who treats them like crap. And they would just sit there and deal with it and play along with the game. The culmination of episode 1 is a battle of sorts inside Agatha's house with her and Aubrey Plaza's character Rio, who is obviously a evil witch or something like that. Anyway, so they fight back and forth. Agatha gets blasted with Rio's magic. Rio cuts her. They have this sexual tension, and there's a lot of wordplay there, which will enthrall all of the alphabet community, I'm sure. And then Rio just leaves her alone. But before she leaves, she says she's going to alert the Salem 7 if Agatha tries to leave where she's at or disappear or whatever. And so that's kind of where we leave episode 1. However, there are some things from episode 1, such as Agatha getting blasted with magic from Rio, that we'll get into in episode 2. So let's jump into episode 2, a little bit better than episode 1. Episode 2 is your classic road trip episode. Agatha and the teen boy decide to go on a road trip to find witches that they can use to find a way to get to the witch's road, which is the way for Agatha to get out of where she's at and to get her powers back. So one by one, they visit these different witches who represent different types of powers or whatever. And they're going to bring them back to Agatha's house to have a coven meeting. They don't really tell them the truth through all this. It's eventually figured out that as she has the witches there and they are chanting and singing this pop song,
the road is wild and wicked, winding through the wood.
Thank God for auto-tune. So after a lovely display of fake singing voices, ultimately, at the end of the song, it doesn't work, or at least it doesn't appear so. In the meantime, it seems that Rio's premonition, or her telling of the Salem witches coming to find Agatha, is holding true. And so, as these evil witches appear in the street and they come to the house and they're breaking in, our effeminate male character somehow decides to shut the blinds and push a sofa against the door. And instead of running downstairs where all these witches are, he just keeps bumbling around upstairs while these evil Salem witches are coming inside the house, terrorizing him. And finally, he decides to go downstairs.
Maybe you could stop being such a little bitch.
After it's over, it doesn't work, or at least it seems to not work. And then it's found out as the witches get upset and Agatha gets mad that she wanted them to blast her with her powers. She starts trying to antagonize them and get them upset so that they'll attack her. And the only way that she can absorb powers is by getting attacked by another witch, and then she could take that witch's powers. But what I was saying in episode 1 that relates to this is the fact that she already got attacked by Aubrey Plaza's Rio character in episode 1 in the fight at the end of the episode. And yet she didn't absorb those powers. She didn't take those powers in. So again, this goes back to world building, setting the stakes, setting the rules of the world. And the writers, evidently, in the first 2 episodes, forgot some of those basic tenets in their own story. Nonetheless, the song actually does work, and it opens up a doorway in the floor in which the witches open up in the basement, and just in the nick of time because the evil Salem witches are upstairs and our young teen boy comes running down. He heads down first. Every other witch follows, and then Agatha shuts the doors just as the Salem witches arrive, putting them in safe harbor, but they're headed to the Witch's Road, which seems like kind of a Wizard of Oz yellow brick road type of thing. Look, I think it's a pretty good ending to episode 2, but let's be honest, episode 1 is not the best way to bring new viewers into this show with a side character that nobody even really knew about and ultimately was such a disappointment in WandaVision. I'd give the first episode about a 5 out of 10. I'd give the second episode about a 7 out of 10. Better than average. Nothing great. Nothing we haven't seen before. But I did like the second episode much better than the first. Still not sold on whether it's the
Gayest?
Marvel show ever. The Acolyte holds the top spot for now. I'll continue to review Agatha All Along every week, so if you like what you heard, please like and share this video and subscribe to the Pop Blender channel. I'm Pop Blender, and I'll see you guys next week as we review Agatha All Along. Also, check in with my live streams every Tuesday with Matthew Matson on The Big Show on this channel at 10 p.m. Eastern, and also every Friday, Pop Blender Unfiltered at 10 p.m. Eastern, Friday nights. Thanks again for watching, and I'll check you guys next time.